Hi everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the CX podcast. And today we're talking about thinking outside in and not inside out. My name's Helen Bowman. I'm the Customer Service Director at Gamma for enterprise and public sector customers. And we've got Owen with us today as well. Hi Owen.
Hi Helen. Hi everybody. So my name's Owen Davies. I'm a business development manager in the enterprise and public sector space here at Gamma. My speciality, I specialise in unified communications and particularly in CCaaS, contact centre as a service propositions.
Awesome. So I think on the topic of thinking outside in and not inside out, obviously this is about looking at the customer journey and letting that inform how we design our systems and our processes as an organisation. Mm-hmm. You've obviously helped a lot of customers in enterprise and public sector space through this journey already, mm-hmm. specifically in terms of designing their contact centre solutions and helping them work through what's important. Yeah. What have you observed through that process?
I think, in all cases really, and the common thread is, what does success look like, and it's really important for us. A lot of the people that we work with, it's important to have a concept of working backwards. So, start at the end rather than start at the beginning. So, and the key thing for the contact centre is to understand your customers. If you don't understand your customer base and how they contact you and what their problems are that they're contacting you with, how can you provide a contact centre service that's optimised for your customer base? So I think that's the key really, is to start at the end, work backwards and really get to know your customers.
Yeah. So it's starting with that vision of what do I want my customers' experience to be when they contact us?
Exactly.
Why are they contacting us? And what is it that they need from us? And do you think that's different depending on who the customer is, or different depending on the reason why they're contacting us?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. That not all contact centres should be the same. They should really be personalised for your customer base. It's no good having a one-size-fits-all. There is no such thing. I mean, I've worked in contact centres now for 20 years, and in most cases, every single one is different because everyone's customers are different. And if you do try and implement a rigid process onto your customers, it's going to break at some point. Yeah. So, as I say, I think the key to successful implementations that I've seen in the past has always been where they have a vision that's based on what they're solving for and what their customers expect from a great customer experience.
And what about this issue of channel choice? It's been a really hot topic, omni versus multi-channel options for customers, consumers engaging with organisations. How important is channel choice, do you think?
Omnichannel, I hate the word omnichannel. And, and a lot of people are starting to use a different term now, so opti-channel. Okay. So what's the optimum channel for your customers to contact you on? It might be that voice is still king, yeah? So 67-70% of customer contact still comes in via voice.
Is that more consumer-led, do you think? Is that the same case when, obviously Gamma business to business, is it different in the business to business environment?
No, I don't think so. It can vary between vertical sectors and industries, but it's always around that sort of 60-70% mark. Okay. And people have always been, or I've often been talking about the decline of voice, but it hasn't changed really in the last sort of 10 to 15 years, and it's declining because there are other channels available. But, the second most popular contact channel is email.
Yeah.
So is adding web chat or various social channels, are they right for your customers? Well, you have to look at the demographic of your customers for a start, because certain demographics of customers will always prefer voice. Mm. The younger millennial type customers might not want to speak to anyone. They might prefer text-based interaction, such as web chat or WhatsApp or Facebook, whichever of the channels are. But again, it really comes down to deciding what's the optimum channel for your customers to contact you in your contact centre, not what everybody else is doing. I think there's a bit of an arms race at the moment to just add channels.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's the right way to go.
No. And I think sort of different points in the journey, Matt and I touched on this in the emotional labour session as well. Different points in the journey will warrant different types of interaction. As you know, we face into businesses and we're often dealing with technology leaders and people that are very tech savvy. So they're quite comfortable with dealing with this via a portal and they've got a strong appetite for that. But the danger that they will think, because that's how they want to do it, they push that onto their customers who may be consumers, they may be elderly, they may be digitally excluded for whatever reason.
Exactly. It's
not right for everyone, and it's not right for everyone at every point in the journey. And those same stakeholders that we deal with that want the digitisation and want the self-serve portal, they really only want it for certain things.
Yeah.
They want to be able to get updates on demand. They want to be able to do billing reports and insights, non-urgent stuff, transactional stuff. Yeah. But actually, when they've got a problem, when they're in distress, it's still voice, isn't it? Or someone in front of them.
And I think, it's really important. You make a great point. The channel that the customer will contact you on sometimes depends on how much they trust it. So if it's a transactional type interaction, I take an example of a bank, I need to find my bank balance, then they might not need to speak to an agent.
Yeah.
They could do that in a digital channel, they can use an app, But if it's to talk about a mortgage or something that's a bit more emotionally attached to them, they'll always want to speak to an agent. And I think what we should be doing is looking to optimize the channels that we've got to make sure that those are right before we start adding more.
Yeah.
Because more is not necessarily better. But let's make sure that the channels that we've already got are optimized so that your customers get a great experience every time, not just hit and miss or inconsistent, depending on the agent that they get through to. It should be uniform across the board. If I contact ABC Bank, I'm going to get the same great service every time.
Yeah, exactly that. And such a lot of that is to do with how we organise ourselves as organisations and having the right people with the right skills in the right roles available at the point of need for those customers at that point in time, isn't it? And I think often, I don't know what you think and what you've experienced with your work with our customers, but for working for Gamma, I think often we're in danger of solving those organisational skills problems with technology, or trying to solve it with technology. And actually, you think of sort of the typical IVR experience when a customer calls in for voice. A lot of the time, the objections we hear, and the amount of times I've heard all the IVRs broken, the IVR's not working, and it rarely is. It's rarely the technology. It's how that technology is supported by people and organisational structure that is the problem you actually need to solve.
No, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we often hear people discussing, you've got, a black hole of an IVR that takes you down dead ends and, drops you into a sort of voicemail or to an FAQ section. But if those outcomes are incorrect, the customer's just going to contact you and go back through the IVR. And I've done it myself. You can learn IVRs, and by pressing certain keys, you can get through to an agent if you really want to. And is that the right thing to do? Is that the right behaviour to ask your customers to sort of cheat the system, if you like? Or is it better to really think about your IVR? And I often ask my customers, when was the last time you called your own customer service line to understand what your customers are feeling? Do you wear their shoes? Do you understand what it's like for your customers to contact you? And you'd be very surprised the amount of CEOs and IT directors that I talk to that have never phoned their customer services. So it's really important to understand that and get it right. And as you say, be operationally ready for contact wherever it arrives.
And I think the bigger the organisation is and the more complex and broad the contact reasons are within your customer base, the more difficult, challenging it is for organisations to decide how to route that call optimally, isn't it? So the old IVR, or how do we streamline the amount of options, because everyone hates being presented with 12 options to pick from, which then presents you with another menu of options and another, and you still end up where you don't want to be. So there's an appetite to streamline that, but how do you get that to the right place? And I guess this is where the technology can help, and the AI and the systems integration to just know who that customer is and what they want without them having to tell you.
And what we're finding now with the advent of AI, I mean, we haven't mentioned it until now, but, it's obviously on everyone's lips at the moment. What we find with it is it's really good at doing the tasks or the admin that humans shouldn't be doing, really. So the repetitive, high volume tasks that need to be done. And one of the best use cases I've seen for it is actually analysing IVRs or chatbots to see how those customer journeys are being routed through and how successful they are. So we use AI to analyse the chat messages. Not what was the question and what is the answer. We know that already, but what was the interaction history in between getting the question and the answer? So really understanding what responses our agents are giving to customers, but also before they get to the agent, what's the experience been like there, and where are they dropping off the IVR, or where are these dead ends, so that we can fix it and improve that journey before they get to the agent, reducing the emotional labour that the agent has to go through. So if a customer comes through an IVR and it's been horrific to get to that point, the customer's going to be even more agitated on top of the problem that they were contacting you about anyway, and the agent's then going to have to deal with it. So it's really about sort of smoothing that journey and getting them through to the right place at the right time as quickly as possible.
And I think it's really dangerous, again, to think, isn't it, obviously the IVR is the problem and the voice channel is the problem. Let's move to WhatsApp. Let's move to chatbots, because that will get rid of the problem. And actually, it doesn't. If you're still handling that interaction ineffectively, if you still haven't understood what the key points are, you're still going to send a customer in a doom loop. And if they're stuck in a doom loop on your web portal and they can't break out of it and speak to a human, that's going to cause even more frustration, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It really is the key to it is to understand that journey and make sure that the customer is not expending more emotional labour or not experiencing more friction to exacerbate the problem that they're already contacting you about, because 9 times out of 10 they're contacting you because they have a problem. We don't need to make more of a problem by giving them too much choice. And then by giving them the choice, not giving them an optimal experience through other channels. So let's get
encouraging them to pick the right channel for whatever their problem is as well. And again, Matt and I touched on this in the last session. It's that skill of the customer service agent. If they come to you with something transactional, and certainly if they keep coming back to you with something transactional, you know that the better avenue is for them to go to the customer portal, for example. Well, that agent needs to know the customer portal inside out and to be able to go, let me show you how to do this more efficiently going forwards, and that gentle coaching of the customer. So the customer service agent becomes a digital assistant as well. Technology, massively important, obviously, and a hugely beneficial tool if we leverage it in the right way, but it's still a co-pilot, isn't it? It's very much, it's not a substitute for good organisation.
No, and you can't, technology will not give you better customer service. No. It will enable it, but it won't. If you've got fundamental issues that you don't understand your customers and why they're contacting you, how can you fix the problems that they face when they do? Because it really is the new battleground now. Customers can move and change. Like I go back to the bank analogy. Most people used to stay with their bank for life, but now you can switch in a matter of seconds. So if you get a bad experience, you really will talk with your feet and move on to the next brand.
The impact is instant. And I think even if that's not an option, even if it's a longer process to switch between products, there's still that reputational threat, isn't there? In this day and age with social media and Trustpilot and all those sorts of applications that anybody and everybody can access and immediately voice an opinion. It's more important ever to make sure that your contact centre experience is mimicking what you say and what you sell as your brand reputation, isn't it? So, we said it again in the last session, everyone can say, we do customer service really well. It's an easy thing to say, and because people expect it, they sort of take it at face value, but you're very quickly exposed if you don't walk the walk.
No, absolutely. And as I say, that right at the start, what we said is, let's think about what our vision and strategy is, and let's work backwards from that. If you start at the beginning, it's a minefield, and technology will dictate what you do, and it's probably not the right way to go.
And I think rabbit holes of teams designing based on how they do things today. I think it's quite difficult for people who are in functional roles and in the weeds to lift themselves out of that sometimes and think aspirationally, and that's not their fault. That's how they're conditioned to work. So that's a real danger, I think, of working inside out, isn't it? That teams will just say, this is what I need because this is how I do it today.
Exactly.
And then that informs, and you never get to a better place at the end.
And, we people often talk to me about we need to improve productivity, or we need to take more contact. We need to improve our average hold time. We need to reduce the amount of time that it takes for a customer to get through to us. And these are all great metrics, but adding additional channels or asking customers to contact in different ways, or deflection's a great one. Why would you want to deflect a customer contact? Surely you want to deal with that. So I read a study the other day that agent attrition and agent turnover in contact centres is highest where there are repeat contacts. So where customers are having to contact you repeatedly to solve the same problem, there's a direct correlation to agent attrition. And that's because, as you say, if you're not empowering your agents and they're not in an organisational structure where they can help customers, it doesn't matter which contact channel you're sending customers in on, that those agents are always going to have a poor experience, which will then feed onto the customer. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's soul destroying, isn't it, if you have to keep dealing with the same problem? I think it also makes it really difficult for an organisation to understand where their problems are.
Yeah.
The kind of the impression that, oh my gosh, we've got hundreds and hundreds of calls coming in, we've got hundreds of incidents being logged, and it's chaos, when actually a lot of that is just rework. A lot of that is, I haven't got to the right place the first time, so I'm trying again and again and again, and we're recounting the same issue. So just getting that right first time, even if you have to do that initially with human labour and human effort, to cut through the noise and understand actually where the problems are in your organisation, so that you can then build from that.
The productivity issue can often be solved by understanding what the problem is that's causing high contact levels. Is there an exterior problem? Has something caused an upsurge in contact, or is the contact because you're not getting that first time resolution right?
Yeah.
And customers are having to recontact you to resolve something that should be getting done on the first contact. And that's the key to understanding good customer service and optimising your contact channels, is to understanding how do we resolve this customer's query first time, every time.
Customer effort score, I think, is really important, isn't it? It's, as you say, it's the main driver of customers churning and agents churning is, and we can all reflect on our own experience as consumers. And I guess perhaps that's really important when we're designing contact solutions for our own organisations. We know the things that annoy us as consumers, but are we actually joining those dots when we're thinking about how we handle our customers' engagements with us? Yeah,
I think so.
Are there any particular sectors, Owen, where you think that the traditional contact centre just is completely, the model is blown? I'm thinking specifically around customers that are organisations that deal in selling emotions and emotional experiences to customers, and the examples that spring to mind for me is something like a hotel brand, where the concierge is obviously very personal, and that meet and greet is very personal. Perhaps, buying jewellery, buying an engagement ring, that's got to be very personal. Where there's a real need for face-to-face, how do you mesh contact centre requirements with that? Is it a completely different story?
No, I don't think so. I think, it's this personalisation that we talk about. So we work with a number of luxury brands, and they want to give the white glove service. Of course they do, but they have to do that either remotely or, they don't have physical locations. So I think of the hotel brand that we work with. They provide a white glove service just through always routing directly through to an agent. There is no IVR. They're staffed correctly. They can route directly to an agent, whichever channel the customer comes through. So there is no FAQ or dead ends or death loops in an IVR. They just thought about their customer base, what they're trying to achieve, and the high transactional value of the services that they provide, and they've staffed it correctly.
And that's the mantra, really, isn't it? Understanding your customers and what they want and what they need, and personalising it for that, not forcing them down an avenue that doesn't make sense.
Exactly. It's it's so important to understand that your customer base, and provide a customer experience that's right for them, not what everyone else is doing.
Okay, well, I think we've probably covered most points.
Yeah, I think as I say, I think. And I'm sorry to repeat myself, but I always, if you think big and start small, or start at the end, not the beginning. Mm-hmm. I think these are good mantras that you can really start to understand your customer service journeys and start improving your organisation, not just your contact centre, improving the whole structure of your organisation. If you're customer focused, then it's absolutely 100% what you've got to be doing. Even
if you don't get to the end game straight away and you're going through that iterative process of doing it piece by piece, it's the North Star, isn't it?
Exactly.
What are we trying to achieve here?
Yeah.
Stop you going down rabbit holes. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Owen. Hope you've enjoyed the session. We've got a link to our Epic CX report at the bottom of the page, so have a click on that and have a read to see more comments on thinking outside in, not inside out, and other topics for Epic CX.